Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. There is a threat out there, and that threat is Russell Vought. Russell Vought is the director of Office of Management and Budget. He is the new director there. Russell Vought is not a friend of veterans. In fact, he is the contrary and has been outspoken with his thoughts on ways to reduce the deficit, essentially on the back of veterans and cutting benefits and so forth. So all that to say is that he is there in an important role. Now, the good news is that we have Doug Collins, who has recently put out a video, and I shared that on this channel as well. If you haven't seen it, you can go back. He's addressing the budget and benefit cuts noise out there. Really, he is standing up and saying, look, Doge is here looking at contracts, this, that, whatever. Benefits are safe. Don't listen to the noise. Don't listen to the media and so forth. Now, let's jump into this because I did find an article and the headline is pointing to the direction of concern, and I wanted to go through it with you. Before we do, though, I want to throw out a special thank you to Wireless Sunday 9897. Wireless Sunday 9897. Thank you so much for that super comment, super chat. I really do appreciate your support so very much. Thanks again, Wireless Sunday 9897. All right, so the headline, what's in store for VA disability benefits with new Office of Management and Budget Chief? Again, that's Russell Vought. Now, hit the thumbs up for me, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. The more that we do that, the more that it shares this information and does two things. One, it makes us an aware body, and two, it shows others that we actually are paying attention to what's going on. So there's kind of a twofold there. The two ask really, look, hit the thumbs up, let the video run. That helps. All right, so during his confirmation hearing, January 21st, Veterans Affairs Secretary Doug Collins pledged to preserve veterans' benefits and not balance the budgets on the back of veterans. But the confirmation of Office of Management and Budget Director Russell Vought, who contributed to two playbooks that support significant changes to VA disability benefits, has put veteran service organizations on guard against any political shifts in VA compensation. So this is an interesting situation. Now, moving on, Vought, Russell Vought confirmed Thursday in a 53-47 Senate vote, so not overwhelming by any means. Spearheaded a 2023 report by the Center for Renewing America, a think tank that called for reducing VA disability compensation for veterans who reach Social Security retirement age and eliminating unemployability benefits for these veterans as well. The report also proposed cutting disability compensation to veterans with ratings lower than 30% and dropping disability compensation for veterans whose health conditions aren't directly related to military duty. There's a few things in there that would be extremely concerning. Now, look, here's my take. Two things. One, if you are not signed up with a veteran service organization as a member of whatever, which one, pick your flavor, American Legion, Marine Corps League, the Retired Enlisted Association, MOA, DAV, Paralyzed Veterans, Purple Heart. I mean, the list goes on, right? VFW, NCOA, there's a bunch. So you should sign up for at least one. Some of their dues are extremely inexpensive for a year. You're talking less than $100. It's probably less than $50 for most of them for a year membership. These organizations really are our lobbying body, right? They go to DC. They go stomp on the desks in DC for veterans' causes. Now, that's one. The other thing that we should do is we should be a louder voice in our own districts, right? Our own constituency base within the district. So your congressional office has your congressional representative has an office in your district where you are. You can find that person. You can show up. You can just say, hi, I'm veteran so-and-so, and I hope that you support veterans, right? You probably won't say that directly to the congressional member, but you could set up a time to meet with them if you feel that's needed. But you can also call, leave a message, speak to somebody on the phone, talk to the staffer that's in charge of all the veteran affairs stuff. Whatever it is, shaking the cage a little bit is probably a smart thing. All right, so let's move on. The report also proposed cutting disability benefits for VA ratings that were less than 30%. Again, that would be horrendous for many veterans. The other part that was extremely concerning was conditions that aren't directly related to military duty. Now, there's two possibilities in that statement. One is no secondary conditions. Okay, so no secondary conditions, that would be a horrible idea. And then the other would be, well, if your migraines just showed up during your time in service, it's not really directly service connected. I mean, prove that the military caused it is what they would be saying. And currently, that's not what the threshold is. Currently, the threshold is show me that your condition showed up during your time in service or is a result of your time in service in some way. Now, showing up is just showing up. And we've all talked about, hey, I've been in the military, this long, they own me this period of time. You can't get a sunburn, you can't do this. And because they own you, essentially anything that happens to you is now on them. So without diving too deep into that, the bottom line here is that if you are not already service connected for secondary conditions or primary conditions, you need to do that, and you need to do it quicker than later, because just to hedge your bets, right? Why not, first of all? And if your doctor can't or won't provide you the medical evidence, it's evidence that there's some VA legalese that gets wrapped up all in that stuff. If you need a nexus letter, diagnosis, a linkage between a current condition and a secondary condition, DBQ to get the correct rating, and so forth, utilize AME, free consultation. Their information is in the description and in the comments. All right, let's move on. Vought also contributed to Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's blueprint for a conservative federal government, which recommended the VA revamp its disability rating schedule to eliminate any conditions that are tenuously related or wholly unrelated to military service. So again, basically saying if you can't really prove that the military caused your condition, you shouldn't really be rated for that. So moving on, Project 2025's VA section, written by former VA Chief of Staff Brooks Tucker, suggested that the new administration targets significant cost. Now again, this is suggestions, much like the CBO, right? Throws out options, and they target veterans year after year. So, and it's so sad. Former VA Chief of Staff Brooks Tucker suggested that the new administration targets significant cost savings from revising disability ratings awards for future claimants while preserving them fully or partially for existing recipients. So again, look, if something happens, there's probably going to be a quote-unquote grandfather type of a situation. So in that case, make sure that you are solid. Look, here's what I would do just so I could sleep better. If I'm not already 100% permanent and total, I would be looking at any additional conditions that I could potentially file for, either service-connected or secondary, or filing for increases. I would absolutely be doing that to get myself closer to the permanent and total aspect. The second thing that I would do is if I am on TDIU, total disability, individual unemployability, I might kind of think about that same thing. Is there anything, I don't really need it. I'm already at 100% and I'm not working and I'm not planning to work, so I don't really need the 100%. Well, maybe you do if something weird like this takes place. Again, probably unlikely, but it's better to be ready for it than not. If you're on TDIU and you are, 80%, maybe you're not that far from 100% if you have some conditions that worsened over time, you have some secondary conditions that developed and so forth. You could absolutely start to bridge that gap and move over to the 100% rating instead of the TDIU in the event that they were at any time, today, tomorrow, 7 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever it is, in the event that they decide that TDIU should go away. Anyway, moving on. While President Donald Trump distanced himself from Project 2025 during his campaign, and Collins, VA Secretary Collins, said in his hearing that he had not read the document, the administration has, in its first 3 weeks of office, implemented the document's recommendations on eliminating diversity initiatives, freezing federal funding, and withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement. Well, a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you, was probably going to happen whether or not the Project 2025 was written. And oh, by the way, if it's a conservative blueprint, you're going to have conservatives in it and working on it, which means those people might end up in the administration somewhere. So, that's all kind of how it is. I mean, it is what it is. Collins, Secretary Collins, put out that video, and I put it on my channel as well, where he is essentially standing up and saying, "Look, benefits will not be cut." But again, this video is based on Vought, who doesn't necessarily have any control, but he now has a platform or pillar in which he can speak from. And that's a little bit concerning. So moving on. Trump has completed one Center for Renewing America recommendation, signing an executive order that enforces the Hyde Amendment, barring the use of federal funds for abortions, and moved to end protections for transgender individuals, also suggested in the document. All right. So, and I found this, by the way, on military.com. So this is military.com's, article. Just trying to see if there's anything else on Vought that we can read about here. And I don't really see anything. The big deal is that Vought was involved in a lot of this stuff. And here's some more stuff on Vought. So here's a quotation here real quick. Disabled veterans have made tremendous sacrifices enduring physical and mental injuries in service to our nation. They have rightfully earned the compensation they receive for disabling effects of their service-connected injuries and illnesses. So, and that's from somebody with the last name of Reese. Now, here's the point. Congressionally, not a good move to be, making any moves on this. The VA secretary also would not endorse it. So I wouldn't think that even if Vought were to say this is really what we need to do, I'm pretty sure that the affected department would come into play. The Congressional Veteran Service or Veterans Affairs committees would also be involved, and none of them would endorse that. So it'd be all these different entities saying you're ridiculous, and Vought the only one saying, yeah, that's what we need to do. So I don't foresee anything happening today. And here's the other piece. There's strength in numbers, right? Especially when you're talking about politics. The bigger the body that you affect, well, that's the more votes. So you don't really want to make them too mad, right? So I love the fact that the VA secretary has been putting into his messaging veterans, dependents, spouses, survivors, caregivers, all encompassing. He's not just saying disabled veterans, right? If you just say disabled veterans, that's 6 million. If you say veterans, spouses, surviving spouses, dependents, caregivers, now you're talking about 45 million. That is a bigger eye-opener as you're having those conversations with Congress. And because he's a former congressional member, he understands the value of that. Anyway, here's another piece from this story here. During Vaught's confirmation hearing before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, Senator Richard Blumenthal pressed Vought on means testing and whether he supports cutting disability pay for veterans with less than 30% disability rating. Vought didn't directly answer the question, saying only that Trump would put forward everything they need for what the Department of VA does. Then there's another quote. I'm not here on behalf of what I think. I'm here on behalf of the president, Vought said. The Center for Renewing America is a think tank, and I'm currently the president of it. It is not an agenda of the president, Vought said. A week later, Blumenthal then pressed Collins for answers. I need from you a commitment that you will oppose any such efforts by the administration, Blumenthal said. Quotation, we're going to put the veterans first. And for me, that decision comes to the secretary. That is our budgetary oversight, Collins replied. So with that being said, again, Vought, not really pro-veteran. He did say that, look, maybe he understands the lane that he's supposed to be in, and he won't target VA, although the lane that he is in is the Office of Management and Budget. So there may be some suggestions that come out of that office. However, I believe that Secretary Collins would combat anything that would adversely impact veterans. So with that, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.